Hello listeners, I'm Edward Blakelock. Today I continue the Seven Churches, Chapter 6, Part 2, the letter to the church in Philadelphia. These things says the Holy One, the true, he who has the key of David, the one who opens and no one shall close, and who closes and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have put before you an open door, and no one is able to close it, because you have a little strength, and kept my word, and did not deny my name. See, I give of the synagogue of Satan, and those who say they are Jews, but are not, but lie. See, I say, I will make them come and worship at your feet, and know that I have loved you. Because you kept the word of my patience, I too will keep you from the hour of trial which is to come upon all mankind, to try those which dwell upon the earth. I come quickly. Hold fast that which you have, that no one take your crown. He who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall never go out from there. And I will write upon him the name of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes out of heaven from God, and my own new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. 3:7-13. Her position as a border town between two cultures, Greek and Asiatic, did much to determine the character of Philadelphia as a community, and to lay down the lines of her history. Communities, like individuals, develop distinctive characters. That is true even of a country like New Zealand, where travel is common, where unifying influences of government and education are at work, and where there is wide interchange of population. The spirit of Dunedin is notably different from that of Auckland. In the Old World, and especially in ancient times, such marks of individuality were much more striking. The tense atmosphere of Jerusalem, the electric, riotous spirit of Alexandria, the quiet dignity of Athens, the licentious spirit of Corinth, were realities which could be felt. The remark is true of the seven societies at present under review. Each town had its own spirit and temperament, and that spirit, for good or ill, was often reflected in the church or in the problems of the church. In Philadelphia, the spirit was cosmopolitan. The people were not cultural isolationists. That is why in pre-Christian times, the town was a successful outpost of Hellenism, and in Christian times, the home of a missionary church. Such significance lies in the key of David. The reference, of course, is to Isaiah 22. The prophet there describes the rejection of Shebna from the king's stewardship and the appointment of Eliakim. He wrote, "And it will come to pass in that day that I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with thy robe, and with thy girdle will I strengthen him, and thine administration I will give into his hand. And I will set the key of the house of David upon his shoulder, and he shall open, and none shall shut, and he shall shut, and none open." The key, of course, would be a considerable piece of wood, designed to thrust in and lift the bar which held the two leaves of a door in position. No Jew could read the phrase in the letter to Philadelphia without remembering the passage in the Old Testament, and without realizing that the church was being called to a stewardship of the Word of God. And through the Septuagint, the imagery of Isaiah was doubtless familiar to all Christians. They had kept his word in Philadelphia, like true officers of the king, and should continue so to do. It is to be noted that the two churches which are unreservedly praised had little strength in the terms of human estimation. They relied on the omnipotence of God. Smyrna was poor. Philadelphia had small power. A crown of life is promised Smyrna, and Philadelphia honor and dignity. for the whole church, not for a remnant amid a backslidden and unfaithful community. Smyrna and Philadelphia were alike in another respect. They had a synagogue of Satan, a virulent, active, Jewish nationalist community who were the chief opponents of Christian witness. Ignatius, in his letter to the same church, speaks of the persecuting activities of the Jews of Philadelphia. And as in the case of Smyrna, the title of Jew is denied to those who turned it into a name of nationalism. The true Jew is the true interpreter of divine privilege. Hence the relevance of the Jewish imagery in the opening of the letter. The Jews so called were no longer the stewards. Like Shebna, they had been set aside, and another kept the oracles. Shebna was a high-ranking official in the court of King Hezekiah of Judah, who served as the royal steward. He is primarily known from the book of Isaiah, where the prophet Isaiah condemns him for his pride and ambition, particularly for craving an elaborate tomb for himself. As a consequence of his arrogance, Isaiah prophesied that Shebna would be removed from his position and replaced by Eliakim. A sentence of excommunication had doubtless been pronounced in the synagogue, with all due pomp and ceremony, against those who had seceded from the fold. And sensitive souls are not unaffected by such portentous formalities. "Let them not fear," says the letter. "Another has the key of David, and gives it, not to rejected Jewry, but to his faithful. And no man shall close what they open." In such faith Savonarola answered the Bishop of Vazona, who had pronounced his sentence of excommunication. "I separate you," said the judge, "from the church militant and triumphant." "From the church militant," answered the Florentine, "not from the church triumphant, for that is not yours to do." From the hour of trial, the Philadelphians would be kept. The coming worldwide clash between Christ and Antichrist is looming large. Even a lesser seer than John might have foretold the conflict. The older generation could not read the words in Philadelphia without remembering the long 20 years after the earthquake, in which people lived in ever-lived suspense. For 20 years the city issued no coinage, a fact eloquent of the state of anxiety and dislocation in which the people had existed. The phrase about "an hour of trial" would strike home in Philadelphia. They knew the strain of waiting for a sudden visitation, and another earthquake was about to shake the church. They were to remain serenely confident, for the conqueror should be made a pillar in the temple of God, and go out thence no more. For long years, no pillar stood firm on the Philadelphia's rocky foundations. For a whole generation, people had lived in constant readiness to go out, fence, and camp in open countryside. It is impossible to understand the language of the letter without reference to well-remembered trials. The victor, too, should win a new name. Philadelphia's had won a new name, or chosen one, only to abandon it. The victorious Christian was to bear a new name in token of eternal security. God, in other words, would do better for his own than paganism had done for its devotees. The mystic name of God, the Church and Christ, is to be marked upon him. The aspiration in Blake's oft-quoted verse has in fact its firm prerequisites. "I will not cease from mental fight, nor shall my sword sleep in my hand, till we have built Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land." Humanitarian legislation is no substitute for the gospel Bally preached, in uncompromising fullness by a missionary church. Name and personality were closely commingled in ancient thought, and a faithful and valiant church is thus said to bear marks of the personality of God and of a new society. They cannot be disassociated. Godlessness and peace will never go together. In conclusion, a remarkable passage in Gibbon, to which Trench draws attention, is worth quoting. It occurs in chapter 64 of The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. In the loss of efforts, the Christians declared the fall of the first angel, the extinction of the first candlestick. The desolation is complete, and the temple of Diana and the church of Mary will equally elude the search of the curious traveller. The circus and 3 stately theatres of CR are now peopled with the wolves and foxes. Sadness is reduced to a miserable village, and the god of Mohammed, without rival or son, is invoked in the mosques of Fire, Tyre, and Pergamum, and the populace of the Smell is supported by the foreign trade of the Turks and Armenians. Philadelphia alone has been saved by prophecy and courage. At a distance from the sea, forgotten by the emperors, encompassed on all sides by the Turks, her valiant citizens, their religion, and freedom above the school years, and at length capitulated with the proudest of the Ottomans. Among the Greek colonies and churches of Asia, Philadelphia is still erect, columnist, a scene of ruins, a pleasing example that the paths of honour and safety may sometimes be the same.